Patriots of era, Protestants and Catholics, Loyalists and Nationalists, North and South, 32 counties united. But who speaks for the Irish? What was our Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, thinking? That's the burning question across the hills of Donegal today. We've learned that the role of Peace Commissioner, an honour traditionally reserved for respected, rooted Irish citizens, has just been handed to a man from India. Yes, folks, Mr. Ajit Dharmajam, a software engineer based in Kilkenny. Now, let's be clear, folks, this is not about race, it's about representation. It's about what it means to belong to a people, a place and a nation. We say no more. We call for transparency in this process. We demand to know how many Irish-born candidates were considered, what criteria are being used and who sets them. And above all, we Irish demand that Irish voices to be heard in Wexford, Donegal, Cork, Athlone, Kerry, Coleraine, Dublin and Monaghan and beyond this island, not silenced, not sidelined and not replaced. Donegal has no strange shortage of decent, upstanding Irish women and Irish men who have given their lives to their communities. Guards, teachers, nurses, farmers, public servants, housewives, GAA coaches. So why have they all been overlooked? Why in this Ireland, our Ireland, does it seem that the Irish count for less and less every day? This is the kind of decision that chips away at identity, at trust and what we call home. The Peace Commissioner is more than a title. It's a symbol of integrity, duty and connection to the Irish people, a role that should reflect our culture, our voices and our values. Instead, we see a growing trend where locals are being sidelined in favour of photo ops, diversities, quotas and political correctnesses, where our government celebrates globalism and forgets its own. It's time, folks, we said stop. Stop erasing Irish identity. Stop ignoring Irish citizens. Stop acting like we don't see what's happening. The people of Donegal and of Ireland deserve better. We deserve representation that respects our roots, because this, folks, is still our land and we're not going anywhere. An assault took place in Ballynahinch Bog, County Laois, a few days ago, and the Irish people need to hear about this. Liam Gorman, a local man, a lifelong bog cutter, was attacked, threatened and had his own private property damaged. The perpetrators, I believe, were a group calling themselves the Bailiff Service of Ireland, a private company, not part of the court service, and with no lawful or constitutional authority to lay hands on anyone, let alone an Irish citizen, on his own land. Backed by Bord na Móna and their so-called court orders, unsigned, invalid and utterly fraudulent, these hired agents are carrying out intimidation and land grabs under the false banner of enforcement. Look, folks, let's call it what it is. Legal theatre to mask theft. They cite the Private Security Services Act 2004, but even that legislation, folks, as of July 2025, is invalid and unenforced. So what right do they think they have to turn up with boots and threats? On their own website, the Bailiff Service of Ireland openly advertises services like peaceful repossessions, animal and livestock removal and civil enforcements. But there's nothing peaceful about what happened to Liam's assault. There's nothing civil about threatening an Irish father on the lands he loves. This is corporate muscle disguised as law, and it's been used to tear up our heritage out from under us, bog by bog, acre by acre. We stand with Liam Gorman. We stand with every turf cutter who refuses to be bullied off their land by frauds in uniform. And we ask the public, who do they think they're fooling? We see through the lies, we feel the pain, and we say enough is enough. This has to end now. Look, we can thank no one for it, only Jimmy Dean of Kerry, who was the Minister for Arts, Culture and Rural Affairs back in 2013, for what's happening now to this man's bogs, for what is deeply emotional and a difficult subject for many across Ireland. Turf cutting is more than a means to heating a home. It's a tradition passed on from generations to generations, rooted in identity, community and survival. For many families, the bog is sacred ground, woven into the every fabric of where they were born. Even back in 2012 on RTE, Jimmy Dean, was very clear, sent a compromising message. Anyone planning to curve tough on Ireland's protected raised bogs that weekend would face consequences. His warning came after the Turf Cutters and Contractors Association called him out. And to think it fell to Jimmy Dean, a Kerryman raised on a bogland himself in Finoog, to become the voice of that enforcement. Shame on him. For many, it felt like a bitter irony. A man who understood the bogs better than most, now warning those who had lived off them to stop. It was a turning point in Irish history, not just in cutting turf debacle and debate, but in the long and often painful story of rural Ireland's collision with EU environmental policy. And more than a decade later, we now see the fallout. What was Councillor Malachy Stinson thinking when he posted a statement on X last night? The question on the lips of the people up and down the country, and rightly so. Just days ago, Councillor Stinson released a statement condemning the so-called toxicity in the national movement. He spoke of unity, while in the same breath trying to silence certain voices like myself, Irish voices, who dared to speak out. We must not forget that it was Malachy Stinson that sat across in Supermax watching my very peaceful protest of 1,500 Irish citizens who marched to the Dáil. But let's not forget what Malachy himself did this past weekend. He sat across a boardroom table beside Derek Bly, Michael Leahy and an Englishman, Jim Ferguson, who I believe is a wonderful man and well liked, and who was asked to chair the very meeting. Yes, an Englishman guiding a so-called Irish national movement that's for the unity. How's that for consistency, folks, I asked. The very man now, Malachy Stinson, who attacks loyalists for having no place at protests, sat nodding along beside one, seeking common ground. Is this leadership or hypocrisy? The Irish people are not blind. We see the double standards. We see the threats of no platforming, an attempt to control and divide. We see the egos, the gatekeeping and the arrogance. And now I'm asking, what does Malachy Stinson really speak for? Because it certainly doesn't seem to be the ordinary, the decent Irish men and women who are rising up community by community, parish by parish, to defend their country. This movement belongs to you, the Irish people, not to any politician, not to any self-appointed elite, and certainly not to anyone trying to rewrite the truths behind closed doors. I myself refuse now to be intimidated by Malachy Stinson or his rats any longer. Their scare tactics won't work on me. I won't be silenced, threatened or intimidated by Malachy or anyone around him. That time is over. The tide is turning. The people are waking up. And I have now a message to all the Irish people. We are now part of a movement to bring 100,000 voices to the gates of Dáil Éireann to demand the dissolution of the Dáil. We saw the power of 1,500 people marching to the streets, to the gates of Leinster House a week ago. Our unity shook the halls of power. Now we're not waiting 3 months for Micheál Martin and the government to come back from their holidays. Meanwhile, Ukrainians are openly selling cars on social media that were given to them by the Irish government, paid for you, the Irish people. This level of disrespect and misuse of taxpayers' resources we are dealing with. Enough is enough. The country is going down the Swanee fast. Time is now of the essence. The time for action is now. Together we will make our voices impossible to ignore. Ireland deserves better. Ireland demands change. Chucking our law. That change is coming. Our law in ish. Goramila Mahagev.